This is the Supra, and it's way crazier than you can imagine. Games and movies like Need for Speed and Fast and Furious put the spotlight on this car, which ended up creating a legion of fans for the model. But this fever only happened nearly 10 years after its launch. What did people think of this Toyota sports car before Brian drove it on the big screen? There are 5 generations, but only the A80 received worldwide love and recognition, a demand even the manufacturer didn't believe was possible. But what's under that hood? What has this car achieved? And what is the real reason for this sports car's success? Could it be something much more than road performance? Today you will finally understand what makes the 4th generation of the Toyota Supra everything the others couldn't be. One of those generations that even Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson believes was not made for intelligent people, and you'll find out which one it is at the end of this video. Today you'll get the answer to how the Japanese sports car went from heaven to the hell of automotive racing, from legend to laughingstock, the Toyota Supra. 1978. Welcome to the era of dance floors and vinyl records. At that moment, we already had symptoms of the golden decade of music and art in our country. On the other side of the world, in Japan, an automotive revolution was taking shape. The seed to place the country in the sports car world was growing within Toyota after the success of the 2000 GT in the late 1960s. And although the result was excellent, everyone knew that wasn't where they wanted to be. They were looking for even more space in that market. Combining engineering with aesthetics had become a matter of honor, and to make it happen, they needed to face the European charm and American power. The manufacturer first saw Nissan, still called Datsun, launch the Z, which was a bold mix of European design and affordable price, allowing many to finally dream of owning a sports car. Toyota saw the impact of that launch and wasted no time. In April 1978, the Supra, or rather the Celica XX, from the reliable Toyota was revealed. In no time, the Celica began to enchant with its street prowess. It was a powerful and comfortable sports car to drive with a 6-cylinder fuel-injected engine. Besides the notable performance, the global expansion of this Toyota car was also lucky, its luck and the misfortune of others. In the early part of that decade, America needed something different. The oil crisis significantly affected the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Large, heavy cars were out of consideration due to high prices and fuel shortages. They needed other alternatives, so the arrival of the Celica was perfect timing. It was the answer to all the population's problems in that context. Besides all its mechanical capability, it also had all the possible luxuries of the time, like power windows, tilt steering wheel, and a top-notch sound system. With the arrival of the 1980s, a 2.8-liter, 116 horsepower engine was introduced to the model. Compared to its possible rivals of the time, like the Porsche 924, BMW 320 Ti, and the Mustang V8, it beat them all. Of course, the Mustang had 134 horsepower, but it was also much heavier than the Japanese car. And as you may have noticed from the previous examples, the rivalry between nations was at its peak to see who was the world's largest automotive manufacturer. While computers were being launched, the major automakers were preparing to overcome the intense rivalry between European charm, American power, and Japanese precision. Toyota had the advantage of working at the peak of its country's economy, and thus, first and foremost, was the 2nd generation of that car, the Celica Supra A60. We had the P-Type and L-Type versions, with the P version focused on performance and the L version referred to luxury. They had different wheel sizes and seats but were mechanically identical and boasted the same power. The A60 exuded luxury. The advancements were not just under the hood and in the more aerodynamic design, but also in the interior. The 5MGE engine powering the Supra was a 2.8-liter and now featured a dual overhead camshaft, which helped increase power to 150 horsepower. The model also had the help of the British manufacturer Lotus to tune its suspension, making the car unique for the roads. It might seem hard to believe, but 40 years ago, the Japanese car already had all this: temperature control, some digital panel options, headlight washers, 4-wheel disc brakes, and the option of a turbocharger if you lived in Toyota's home country, Japan. At that moment, Toyota's involvement with sports cars was starting to make an impact worldwide, and they were far from wanting to stop there. The oil crisis was coming to an end, and everyone was back to seeking power and speed. They wanted the car's engine to scream for them, celebrating the end of the crisis that lasted almost a decade. The Japanese manufacturer responded to the power-hungry public and launched the third version of the Supra. The Supra A70 arrived even more aggressive and elegant, boasting an impressive 3.0-liter, 24-valve engine, resulting in an impressive 200 horsepower. The suspension was fully independent double wishbone. All this was enough to form a new dynasty. Along with this new dynasty, we had a new crisis. This time, in a relationship, the marriage between the Celica and the Supra was about to end. What was once a single model would now become two different ones with distinct purposes. The Celica remained a sports car, but with more conservative aerodynamics and front-wheel drive. Meanwhile, the Supra went all out. They doubled down on the evolution of the rear-wheel drive sports car. The 7M GTE engine was masterfully installed, delivering 230 horsepower and 240 lb-ft of torque. Besides the unquestionable power, there was also the turbo version of the Supra, launched in '87, which had additional features to handle the extra power, like an engine oil cooler, intercooler, and an integrated spoiler. The following year, the model underwent various updates, both in design and in power and technology, which bothered some, as the Toyota car gained almost 360 kilos in that process. Even so, it became the best-selling Supra in history. The sales boom motivated the Japanese to take the project to the track, and in '88 they adapted the Supra to the rigorous rules of the Japanese Touring Car Championship in Group A. They brought the MA70 to the race, and since it needed to go into production, the nearly 280 horsepower model hit the market as a limited edition of 500 pieces. The project's first season on the tracks was quite irregular. Despite some victories and podiums, the competition was fierce. Cars like the Ford Sierra Cosworth, Nissan Skyline, and BMW M3 fought intensely for the title, but the Ford Sierra model driven by Naoki Nagasaka took it home. The first incredible achievement for the Toyota model was in 1991 when it won the 12 Hours of Bathurst, the intimidating Australian circuit, with drivers Peter Fitzgerald, Alan Grice, and Nigel Arkell. In the same period the model won in Australia, something even more revolutionary was brewing behind the doors of the Japanese factory. The world was impressed with the technological advances. Now everyone could publish information on the internet and send emails. It was truly a revolution, and Toyota wanted to bring the same impact to the sports car world. So in June 1993, the Supra A80 was launched on the market, and in no time everyone realized that surpassing the line wasn't just marketing. That car proved to be capable of facing cars that cost twice its price, like the Ferrari 355. They were really competing in the elite of motorsport. The car was designed to be light, all structured in aluminum in parts like the hood, roof, and control arms. The tank was made of plastic, and its size was reduced. Ultra-high strength steel was used in some parts, strategically thinking about maintaining integrity, even though it was lighter. All this resulted in a reduction of 100 kilos. The car was molded with the support of the wind tunnel, making the A80 one of the most aerodynamic of its time. Toyota did not skimp on the brakes. Something had to tame that beast. The discs were larger, and instead of using 2 pistons, they used 4. All this gave the car the world record for braking distance. We talked about everything but what you really want to know, right? So let's get to the best part, the 2JZ engine. To this day, talking about that power causes chills for some car lovers. The 2JZ is the result of a collaboration between Toyota and Yamaha. The other Japanese manufacturers' collaboration helped optimize the cylinder heads, all to improve airflow and combustion. With this help, the GTE version of the engine was also launched, which had 6 cylinders and was twin turbo, making the Supra go from 0 to 100 in 4.6 seconds. That was very futuristic. Imagine what this car would do in the debut of Group A races. Well, unfortunately, when the car was ready to dominate categories worldwide, the tides of motorsport were changing. Group A was coming to an end, but that didn't discourage Toyota. They already had other plans for the car, and they were just around the corner. The Supra's battlefield would be the Japanese Touring Car Championship, and its adversaries would be the toughest possible. Nissan Skyline GTR, Honda NSX, Mazda RX-7, Porsche 911, and the ominous McLaren F1 were in the ring. There were many adversaries and well-prepared ones, but everyone knew that in the long run, the domination of the new Japanese sports car would happen. In '95 came the first victory. In '97, there were 3 podiums. But the year to be really remembered was 1999, where they were dominant and won 5 times, highlighting the victory in the 24 hours of Tokachi, where they finished 19 laps ahead of second place. Now you must be thinking, that car must have sold a lot back then. But I'm sorry to tell you, you're completely wrong. The success on the tracks did not reflect in the dealerships. It's no exaggeration. The 90s were marked by various economic crises worldwide. In that period, having a luxury sports car like the Supra A80 in the garage was one of the biggest synonyms of extravagance. Moreover, even though the price was low compared to equivalent Italian sports cars like Ferrari and Lamborghini, it was still a hefty sum of nearly $90,000 for the turbo version, and that further distanced fans from the possibility of purchase. What was once seen as a combo of performance, luxury, and affordable price was now in the same cost range as other luxury brands. Additionally, at the same time, the United States went through changes in the regulation of these high-performance cars, making the purchase process much more bureaucratic, and that led the Supra to leave the US market in '98. In other countries, the car sold slowly, resulting in an overpopulation of the model in stores and total discouragement at Toyota. But something totally unexpected would happen to stir up the demand for the car again. Can you imagine the sellers at the store seeing a bunch of kids showing up looking for the Supra? What should they have thought? Well, I bet they didn't think it was all because of illegal racing on the cinema screens. That's right, folks. The fact that the iconic Brian appeared in the 2001 movie of the Fast and Furious franchise driving the A80 Supra was enough to put the model back in the spotlight. I think even if Toyota had paid to promote the car, it wouldn't have worked as well as it did on the screens. That machine became a reference car for an entire generation, starting with the movie, and then what I'll tell you now. The entire car culture underwent an unexpected overhaul. Body kits and increasingly extravagant modifications were all the rage. Life imitating art once again. With the fever, video games like Need for Speed and Gran Turismo adapted to the new reality, including the new trends and of course the Supra. Few know, but that Supra from the movie went through some changes beyond the visual. The engine was even more powerful, producing more than 1,000 horses. That more aggressive appearance is what captivated enthusiasts. It had a bold and racing design with performance. All this was incorporated with the love Paul Walker had for that model. He was a true enthusiast, and that added even more authenticity to the scenes of him driving the A80. Some cars were also made custom for the movie, generating exclusivity, some more structured to withstand the impacts of some scenes. In fact, the original car from the movie was first seized and then, only in 2021, was auctioned for $550,000, the most expensive Supra in history. But just as the success was sudden, so was its downfall. Shortly after, the public wanted to see something different, because just as the absurd amount of information on the internet helps lift someone or something, with the same intensity, it leaves you behind when something new comes along. The once popular Supra had already fallen behind to cars that were hitting the market with everything, like the Porsche 911 and Chevrolet Corvette. At that moment, the Japanese sports car was leaving the spotlight for good, becoming just that old nostalgic memory. But those who had the car when it was the most advanced among its rivals don't give up on the model so easily and treat the car like a true rare gem. It was much more than a car. It was something that united enthusiasts and tuners, hypnotizing everyone in drag races. Toyota could look at that sports car and see that they didn't just create a car, but a legacy that the entire automotive community strives to keep alive to this day. But 17 years after Fast and Furious gave visibility to the Japanese car, the global reality was already different in every way. If from the 90s to the 2000s the changes were drastic, from the decade of 2000 to the end of the 2010s, it was absurdly greater. Even though the world was going through a massive financial crisis, countries in Asia like China and India had a giant economic expansion. The growth of technology was devastating. Now everyone walked around with a cell phone as if it were a new human organ, and the formation of a new society, the digital, and then a bomb in the car world. Something that was considered impossible by the fans, but at Toyota, it was priority number one. In 2019, what many doubted became reality. The new Toyota Supra. The A90, or GR Supra, had a daunting mission to ensure that all the expectations created around its name were met. Its predecessor had left a legacy that was not easy to assume. Could the Supra return to being the ultimate sports car reference 17 years later? To refine the model and seek guidance regarding performance in that context, BMW contributed to its development, which was not well received by those accustomed to the brand that didn't need external support. It was seen as a sign of weakness, but we could say it was the right move, given that they had fallen behind in that market. The GR Supra was a true next-generation sports car, but the real debate over whether this car deserved to be part of the Supra family focused on what was under the hood. The B48 six-cylinder engine, derived from the German manufacturer, delivered 355 horsepower with an acceleration of 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 4 seconds. BMW did not disappoint with the engine and delivered what was really expected. The numbers obtained in the handling tests showed that the car had an amazing performance capacity, but something was still missing, something that had nothing to do with horsepower or good torque. In the 80s and 90s, Toyota engineers sacrificed everything necessary to create the legendary car without the need for external help. Why wasn't it the same this time? But let's take it easy because the context is crucial in this case. The problem was much deeper and involved much more than simply the pride of doing it all on their own. To fully understand the story of the Supra's rebirth in 2019, we need to talk about Tetsuya Tada. He is the chief engineer of the brand, and after the success of the 86 model launched in 2012 with his collaboration, he became the leader of the project to revive the 90s car. He had the difficult task of combining the legacy left by the sports car with the most modern that the automotive market had to offer. In that sense, when the 86 was launched, he traveled to Munich to negotiate a collaboration with BMW. From the start, mixing Japanese philosophy with the bold German approach seemed an almost impossible task, and the negotiations dragged on for years. This really went against Toyota's policy, but it was that or see the Supra remain buried in the rubble of the past. When finally Germans and Japanese seemed to speak the same language, they got to work. Toyota wanted to face the Porsche Cayman, while BMW aimed to recreate the reign of the 90s model. At the end of the day, each company did what it could. Toyota dedicated itself to maintaining the Supra's legacy, while BMW added its distinctive touch of robustness, which was the market trend at that time. So although the partnership between the two factories divided opinions, understand that this was the only way to revive the legendary Japanese sports car. The work done by Tetsuya and his mentor, Nobuo Nakamura, is admirable. Nakamura was one of the few who supported the idea of keeping the six-cylinder engine as the heart of the sports car. However, the new car was not to everyone's liking for several reasons. The main ones are, when a new Supra was announced, everyone started imagining what the car would be like. With this, one could have an idea of the public's expectations. However, what arrived was quite different from what fans expected. Another disappointing factor was that the 86 model had practically the same performance as the Supra, besides being very similar. The biggest difference was the price. The GR86 was $15,000 cheaper. Not only within the factory are comparisons made. Another comparison that irritates those who defend that Toyota did not need BMW's support to create the sports car is between the GR Supra and the BMW Z4 M40i. They are practically brothers, sharing the platform, engine, gearbox, and an almost identical interior design. Tetsuya insists that one has nothing to do with the other and states that they are two completely different models.